Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking into, well, a really unique mix of personal reflection, ambition, and the tricky world of commitments. There's a question right at the start of our notes that, honestly, it grabbed me. So I want to put it to you right away. What promise have you broken, and how did it change you? Think about that for a second. It really connects to what we're exploring. And the key word today from our source is rescind. To rescind something basically means to, well, end it officially. To cancel it, take it back. And this idea, this taking back of a promise, it's really central to our discussion.
Absolutely. And our mission today really is to dive into this very personal story. It's about someone trying to get back into academic training, specifically in quantum computing. But, this isn't really about the physics itself. It's much broader. It's about that universal feeling of having big goals, but also hesitating. It touches on those internal struggles we all face, and importantly, the strategic thinking that goes into, well, personal growth. It's a story I think many of us can connect with.
Okay, so keeping that word rescind in mind, let's get into this story. The person writing describes this core dilemma about wanting to return to quantum computing. They say they've been through so many iterations with this goal. And they admit making better progress than the last try, but there's still this feeling of haven't learned enough.
That sounds like a bit of a paradox, doesn't it? Making progress, but feeling like you haven't.
It really does. It's almost like a classic case of the goalposts moving, What's fascinating is that feeling of inadequacy despite acknowledging progress. That's something you see a lot with ambitious people. Their definition of enough just keeps shifting, almost overshadowing the actual steps they've taken. And the source even hints at this by saying they've talked about this multiple times but haven't fully jumped back in.
Yeah.
That really highlights the gap between, say, intention and action. Right, that gap. And often lurking in that gap is, well, fear. The source is pretty explicit here, naming a core fear. Being afraid to hit another wall or overexert myself that it would affect other parts of my life. That's a pretty significant fear. Hitting a wall, burnout.
And it's a completely valid one. I mean, the crucial thing here is figuring out if it's genuine self-preservation, recognizing a real risk, or if it's more like procrastination in disguise. One helps you in the long run, the other just kicks the can down the road. The source seems aware of this tension, saying, it does feel like excuses to an extent, but I don't think I am wrong.
Yeah.
You see, it's not just about willpower. It's a really complex negotiation between ambition and needing to protect your own well-being. Getting that balance right is key for any sustained effort. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. It's a tightrope walk. So maybe it's less about giving up and more about, strategic timing. The source mentions waiting for the perfect window to insert myself back into that situation and feeling like they just don't have it right now.
But this perfect window idea, is it always strategic? Or could it sometimes just be a way to, rationalize not starting? How can you tell?
That's a really good question. And what's interesting here is that the perfect window isn't just some vague idea for this person. They give a really practical reason. My hours are finally dying down at work, so I should have the time to do it if I so wish. See? That shows how external things, like your work schedule, really do shape your ability to tackle big goals. Readiness isn't just an internal feeling. It's often tied to your actual environment and capacity.
Okay, that makes sense. It's practical. And while they're in this waiting phase or maybe preparation phase, they say things are fine the way they are, but I feel like what is now should be just a stepping stone for something greater to come.
Not complaining, just observing where they are.
Yeah, and that stepping stone idea is really important when you connect it to the bigger picture they're painting. There's this clear statement. In the long run, this current situation doesn't serve me well enough. Okay, fair enough. But then crucially they add, nevertheless, what I am doing right now is important to me and I should do my best at it. So it's not passive waiting. It feels much more deliberate, like a strategic approach. They seem to get that doing well now makes that stepping stone stronger. It's about making this stone to be the best stepping stone out there, to step far towards my next step. It's leveraging the present, not just waiting for the future to arrive.
That strategic angle is interesting. And thinking about strategy and knowing when to push or maybe even let go, there's this quote in the material. Some bridges are meant to burn, especially if the trolls underneath won't stop charging tolls. Wow, that's quite an image. How do you see that connecting to this journey, or maybe even more broadly?
It's a really provocative quote, isn't it? It speaks, I think, to the idea that sometimes cutting ties is necessary, strategically necessary. The trolls could be anything, really, situations, relationships, maybe even our own unhelpful thought patterns that just drain us, demanding too much effort or emotional energy without giving much back. So burning a bridge isn't always negative. Sometimes it's about liberation,
Yeah.
you know, clearing the path forward when the cost of keeping that connection is just too high.
Clearing the path. I like that. And speaking of imagery, the visual associated with today's source is also quite evocative. A heart-shaped contract being folded into a paper airplane and tossed into the wind. What does that image say to you?
Well, the heart-shaped contract part, that immediately suggests something deeply personal, right? An agreement made with oneself, maybe driven by passion or emotion. But then folding it into a paper airplane, that changes everything. It's transforming that commitment. It's not a rigid, heavy document anymore. It becomes something lighter, more adaptable, maybe even hopeful. Tossing it into the wind implies release, letting go of a strict path and allowing the journey to be guided more freely, perhaps by new directions or opportunities, rather than just that original, possibly confining promise.
So as we sort of wrap up this exploration of a really personal journey, what's striking me is how much it reflects these universal themes. Ambition, sure, but also that very real fear of failure and the strategic art of evolving personally. What were your main takeaways? How does this fit into the bigger picture of how we grow?
Well, what really stands out is that insight often comes not just from the learning part, the academic stuff, but from the process of navigating these commitments. The push and pull. It's about figuring out when to push forward, when it's okay to pause, maybe even essential, and when you need to just strategically prepare for the next phase. And that encourages us, maybe you listening, to reflect on your own stepping stones. Where are you now?
Yeah.
And are you consciously looking for those perfect windows or creating them?
Yeah, exactly. And that brings us to our final thought for you today. Thinking about everything we've discussed, rescinding commitments, using current situations as stepping stones, what heart-shaped contracts in your own life might you be ready to transform? Maybe fold them into paper airplanes, ready to toss into the wind for whatever your next big step might be. Something to think about.